All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something that I think affects all of us,
Uh-huh.
and that's nostalgia.
Yeah.
Why are we drawn to the past?
Interesting.
What is it about looking back that just kind of has this, like, grip on us sometimes?
Well, it's interesting you say that it has a grip because this source material you sent over,
Yeah.
this excerpt from the Overy Podcast, they actually suggest that nostalgia isn't just some kind of sentimental trend.
Yeah.
It's actually a psychological superpower.
Oh, wow.
Like they literally use that term.
Psychological
Yeah.
superpower. It's
Yeah.
almost like it makes sense, but when you think about it that way, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, and I think we all experience it in kind of subtle ways.
Yeah.
You know, like I was thinking about this the other day. I was trying to decide what to watch
Uh-huh.
on one of the streaming services. And I just found myself like gravitating toward these old sitcoms
Oh, yeah.
that I used to watch as a kid. And I was like, why am I doing this?
I'm like, why am I going back to the,
Yeah. And the hosts of the Overy Podcast, they actually mentioned that.
Yeah.
These kind of everyday experiences,
Right.
whether it's binge watching old shows
Yeah.
or, you suddenly have a craving for a specific snack you haven't had since you were a kid.
Like Dunkaroos?
Yeah, exactly.
What is that?
Yeah, so they're saying like these are actually manifestations of this like powerful phenomenon of nostalgia.
Oh.
And it's interesting because they tie these kind of like simple urges that we have
Yeah.
to like these very fundamental aspects of what it means to be human.
Yeah.
So like they touch on this idea that, we find comfort in the familiar,
Right.
but there's actually evidence to suggest that it goes way deeper than just that.
So it's more than just like, oh, I just love this show because it reminds me of, Friday nights with the fam or something.
Right. It's like a deeper psychological mechanism at play.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so fascinating about what they're talking
Okay,
about.
so let's dig into that a little bit. Because they mentioned in this excerpt that research suggests that nostalgia can actually boost your mood. So does that make sense to you?
It does. And, when we look at the underlying mechanisms at play, it seems that when we recall these nostalgic memories, it triggers the release of neurochemicals in the brain
Oh, really?
that are associated with positive emotions.
Okay.
So it's not just the thought itself.
Right.
It's like an actual chemical response.
Oh, wow. So it's not just like, oh, this makes me feel good because I remember this happy time.
No, it's like your brain is actually releasing these chemicals that make you feel good.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is that it's not even just a passive experience.
Okay.
It's actually engaging these parts of your brain that are linked to reward and emotion.
So then it's more than just a fleeting feeling then if it's like actually changing your brain chemistry.
Exactly. And there's this growing body of research that suggests that nostalgia is actually like a genuine psychological resource.
Interesting.
Like it's not just a frivolous thing.
Yeah.
It actually can have these tangible benefits.
Okay.
For example, it can strengthen our sense of social connectedness.
Okay.
It can make us feel closer to the people we care about and even to our past selves,
Oh, that's interesting.
which can be, especially valuable if you're feeling isolated or facing challenges in the present.
It's like you're tapping into this reservoir of positive experiences to make you feel better now.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they mentioned, too, that it can lessen feelings of loneliness.
Right. And that totally aligns with this idea of social connectedness
Yeah.
because, human beings are fundamentally social creatures.
Uh-huh.
So it makes sense that recalling these shared moments and positive relationships from the past
Right.
can reinforce our sense of belonging.
Yeah, like I'm part of something.
Yeah, it's a reminder that you are part of a larger story,
Yeah.
even when your present circumstances might feel isolating.
Right.
So it can be really powerful in that way.
Now, this is where I think it gets really fascinating.
Yeah.
They said that nostalgia can actually make us more generous. How does looking back make us more giving now?
Well, I think that connection to generosity probably stems from that enhanced feeling of social connection and empathy.
Okay.
So when we access these nostalgic memories,
Yeah.
they often involve other people, right?
Family, friends.
Family,
stuff.
friends, communities. And so remembering those positive social bonds can activate these feelings of warmth and empathy,
Okay.
which in turn can make us more inclined to, engage in pro-social behaviors like generosity.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and think about it. A lot of charitable giving is tied to a sense of community and shared humanity.
Right.
These feelings that nostalgia can actually help to evoke.
Wow. So it's like tapping into that and reminding you that
Right.
we are all connected in a way.
Exactly.
Now, they bring up a really good point, too.
Okay.
And I think this is something we've all kind of wrestled with.
Oh.
Is there a point where this looking back becomes less helpful
Right.
and maybe even a drag on moving forward.
Yeah, that's the flip side of the coin, right?
Yeah, they even had this funny example about, someone still wearing their high school band t-shirt.
I love that example.
Yeah.
Like, no judgment, but, it's like...
Is there a point where it's like, okay,
yeah,
you gotta move on?
Yeah, and that's a really important point to bring up this idea of balance.
Right.
Because while, we've been discussing all these amazing benefits of nostalgia,
Yeah.
the Overy Podcast highlights that there can be a tipping point
Okay.
where it goes from being this, positive force to something that can actually hold us back.
Right.
So if our focus on the past becomes so dominant that it prevents us from fully participating in the present or embracing future possibilities,
Yeah.
then it can definitely be detrimental.
Okay.
So it's about using nostalgia as a source of strength and comfort,
Right.
not as a place to permanently retreat from the world.
So it's not about forgetting those good times.
Right.
It's about integrating them into your current life in a way that propels you forward.
Exactly.
Okay.
The hosts at Overy, I think, frame it really well. They say it's a tool,
Yeah.
and like any tool, its effectiveness depends on how you use it.
It's not good or bad. It's just how you use it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the key here is self-awareness.
Okay.
Are those nostalgic feelings providing you with comfort and connection?
Right.
Or are they maybe a way of avoiding current challenges
Yeah.
or resisting necessary change? What do you notice in your own life in terms of how you engage with nostalgic moments?
Well, that's a great question to ask yourself.
Yeah.
For me, I find a lot of comfort in rewatching certain TV shows when I'm stressed.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my go-to comfort thing.
Yeah.
But I can see how if you're constantly living in that past comfort zone,
Yeah.
maybe it's preventing you from doing other things that could bring you joy as well.
Right. Or even just dealing with what's happening in the present moment.
Right. Or trying new things.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, the nuance that the Overy Podcast is getting at.
Yeah.
It's not about demonizing nostalgia.
It's about understanding its role and making sure it serves you rather than limits you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they had some key takeaways toward the end of the excerpt.
Yeah.
And their main message seems to be that nostalgia can be this really valuable way to connect with other people, to find comfort during tough times, but it shouldn't hold back your personal growth.
I think that's a really good summary of their core message.
Yeah.
They're emphasizing, the benefits of nostalgia for our well-being,
Great.
but also giving us this reminder
Yeah.
about the importance of, continuing to grow and engage with the present.
Right. And I thought it was funny how they said no judgment.
Yeah.
If you're still holding on to those old-fashioned trends from high school.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, because it made me think about how nostalgia can influence even our most lighthearted choices.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Because even things that seem superficial, like fashion, can actually be tied to these deep nostalgic feelings.
And this desire to recapture a certain sense of identity or belonging to a specific time period.
Like, oh, I remember when I used to wear this and I felt so cool or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Overy Podcast is using that relatable example to show us how, subtle but pervasive the past can be in shaping our present preferences.
Our choices,
and our behaviors.
Okay, so toward the end of the excerpt, they encourage listeners to share the episode.
Yeah.
Connect with them on social media for more content.
Standard stuff.
Standard stuff.
But it's interesting how even while they're talking about the benefits of connection through nostalgia, they're actively trying to build that with their own audience.
Right. It's like they're putting it into practice.
Exactly.
Yeah, and their call for ratings and reviews. I mean, that's another common way for content creators to foster a sense of community and expand their reach.
Absolutely. And I think it highlights how this desire for connection and shared experience is a fundamental human drive. It even extends to how we consume media.
Right. Like we want to be a part of something.
Yeah.
Even if it's just, leaving a review.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so they also hinted at their next topic.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
The dark side of productivity culture.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
It sounds like a whole other deep dive.
Yeah, it does. And it shows, how they're constantly exploring different facets of our experiences and how we navigate this, the complexities of modern life.
Right. Yeah, and their parting words, stay curious.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because it really resonates with that spirit of inquiry and continuous learning that I think underpins, insightful content like theirs.
Yeah.
And what we aim for in our deep dives as well.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, our listener, the key takeaway
Okay.
from the Overy Podcast's perspective on nostalgia is that it's a potent, natural human experience.
Yeah.
It can be a real source of comfort and connection, reminding you of those happy memories of people you've shared them with. Right.
But it's important to find that balance.
Yeah.
To make sure that your fondness for the past is enriching your present and your future.
I think that's a really important takeaway.
Yeah.
It's about, appreciating the value of our past without getting stuck there.
Right.
Nostalgia, as the Overy Podcast suggests, can be this powerful ally.
Yeah.
When used thoughtfully.
Right.
Helping us navigate life's ups and downs
Yeah.
with a stronger sense of self and connection.
Well said.
Yeah.
It definitely gives you something to think about. Maybe even prompts you to reflect on your own relationship with nostalgia.
Definitely. And it leaves us with this final thought to consider.
Okay.
In a world that's constantly changing, pushing us towards the new,
right?
What is the role of our past, both individually and collectively?
Right.
Will nostalgia become this even more vital anchor for our identities?
Yeah.
Or will the relentless pace of change kind of shift our focus entirely towards the horizon?
It's a great question. It is, and it's one that's worth pondering.
Yeah.
Long after our deep dive concludes.
Well said.
Thank you.